Is this thing working? Are we live? It looks like we're live. What's happening, everybody? Well, it is a huge day for all of my fellow Zook Nation folks. Listen, it's awesome. We finally got a new 2026 GSXR 1000. And for a lot of folks, they don't really seem to think that much has changed. But I got to tell you, quite a bit has. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the technical specs of this motorcycle. And well, the main thing is just to go over all of the different new potential performance modifications that have been done to this bike and why they are so important moving forward. So I'm going to let a few guys get into the live chat. I'm going to go ahead and pull up some B-roll from Suzuki. So y'all, as you're coming in, hang out amongst yourselves, and then I will be back in just a second, and we are going to dive in to this machine. I am very excited about it. One of the key things I'm so excited about is, well, Suzuki's done a little dirty stuff here, and I'm loving it. What I'm getting at is this. For a long time, manufacturers, whenever you would hear about, say, I don't know, emissions issues, a lot of times that's not necessarily a bad thing. In many cases, increases in efficiency yield performance gains. And in this case, it's very much the case. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of these, what I would consider to be pretty major performance upgrades for this motorcycle. And we're going to talk about why they make such a big difference for a lot of guys. So as you guys are coming in, I am going to be kind of ducking out here and there, getting some background footage going. So again, you guys just kind of hang out amongst yourselves, and I will be in the background. Been looking forward to this. This is going to be a fun one, I think. All right, get this going on in the background. God, they're hitting me up with a Taco Bell ad. Nice. So, okay. So let's dive into it, guys. First of all, here, let me do this. I'm going to make this a whole lot easier because I think you guys would rather be looking at the bike than looking at me. So I'm going to have a promo video going on in the background while I'm talking about this. So check it out, guys. For 2026, Suzuki has decided to get back into the European market. But to do so, they had to comply with Euro 5, or actually, it's Euro 5 Plus, or is it now Euro 6? Anyway, can't keep up with it, but Suzuki had to make some changes to this motorcycle to get it to that point. Now, one of the things that they did to get this motorcycle to the point is they made some engine changes, and that's really what I want to focus on. Now, we will be talking a little bit about some of the technology suite changes that are coming with this bike, but I got to say, it is pretty cool what's going to be happening with this bike. So diving into it, crankshaft, main journals have gone from 35 millimeters to 37 millimeters. Now, that does a couple of things. One, it adds beef to the crankshaft itself. Typically, this has nothing to do with emissions whatsoever. And this is one of the funnier things that they did. Now, the reason why I say that is when you start to look at the race programs for these bikes, one of the key issues that you run into is bearing wear and long-term bearing survivability, especially in endurance bikes. Mostly when you're building a race engine, the size of your main caps or main journals, you want them to be kind of small. The smaller they are, the lower your rotational speed is, actually your tip speed around that bearing. By increasing that by 2 millimeters, realistically, they're not putting any more actual load on the bearing itself, but what they're doing is you're getting a beefier crankshaft in the process. That's going to do a couple of things. One, it helps with NVH, which is noise, vibration, and harshness. The other thing that it does is it just adds rigidity to it. So that's going to be something that is going to be very welcome to the race teams that are out there. So another good thing that Suzuki did along the way, new connecting rods and a revised crankcase. Anytime you get into revised connecting rods, we're talking stronger components that can handle more power and presumably more abuse. Guys, this is good, but remember that the GSXR 1000 is already very well known for being practically bomb-proof. But in this case, they've made it even better. Stronger connecting rods to go along with pistons that will now have a 13.8 to 1 compression ratio. Damn. Okay, so we're coming up from 13.2 to 13.8. What does that mean? More squish, more bang. And that's what you're looking for making horsepower. Now, one of the things that has been, not the details, but one of the things that Suzuki's also done is they have fitted this engine now with revised camshafts. My understanding is that that camshaft has less valve overlap. That does help with emissions, but what it also helps with top end horsepower. The way camshafts work, the tighter the lobe separation angle is, the more mid-range power it will produce. It'll also make better low-end power, but it sacrifices top-end power to get there through pumping losses. Spread that LSA, it's called low separation angle, out. What that means is that you're cracking the exhaust valve earlier, which means you are evacuating exhaust gas earlier, which means that you have less pumping losses at higher RPM. This motorcycle has got the fixins already to make horsepower higher up in the RPM while still being able to maintain good throttle response down low. But they took it even a step further. Oh, this is so cool. So check this out, guys. The exhaust valve is 1 millimeter larger. It's 25 millimeters versus the 24 millimeters for the older bike. So it does have a revised cylinder head. And it needed that revised cylinder head because it's got to accept larger throttle bodies. See, the thing is, this, this bike has got larger throttle bodies. How much larger? By 2 millimeters. It's got 48 millimeter throttle bodies now as opposed to 46. Again, everything that this bike has had done to it is in effect going to have a knock-on higher horsepower potential. So camshafts with a wider LSA. Yeah, you lose a little bit of the mid-range, but you get to pick up top-end horsepower. But wait a minute, do you really lose mid-range? Guys, we picked up over half a point in compression. Oh, and this is what I want to get at. Half a point in compression. Let me explain to you how that translates into horsepower. For every 1 point in compression that you go up, you raise the horsepower and torque by 3%. It's very much the same as going down in altitude, lowering that density altitude. Well, going up a point usually yields about 3%. And so this is where things get kind of funny. Camshaft has a wider lobe separation angle, presumably for emissions. Okay, it does that, but it also helps you shift power up higher in the RPM range. But you've got bigger throttle bodies, again, more power up top, higher compression though. Higher compression is going to help you make some of that torque back up that you may lose down low with the cam and with those bigger throttle bodies. Oh yeah, and revised air boxes. So in essence, what it looks like, at least on paper here, is that Suzuki did a lot of stuff to this engine to, how do I say this? It's almost like a middle finger, because what they've done to Euro 5 compliance, because what they've done is they've built a bike that is tailor-made for tuners. I get more compression, I get bigger throttle bodies, I get larger main journals, so I know that this thing can be pushed even harder. It's going to have the revised airbox to go along with it. Oh, and it has a higher pressure fuel pump and revised fuel injectors. Guys, it's going to be pretty nasty. Once tuners get their hands on these bikes, start to watch numbers go nuts. Look, I'll give you a perfect example of this. The Honda CBR 1000 Pirate Edition, the RRR1, that one. The funny thing about that bike is that the new GSXR 1000 is kind of mimicking that bike a little bit in a few ways. The first way that it is that, well, the Triple R has got a ton of hot rod parts on it, but the calibration is EPA, so to speak, or Euro 5 compliant or 5 plus compliant. Once that component is taken away, that Euro 5 compliance, pull in the exhaust, putting a full system on it in terms of exhaust headers and silencer and a retune, that motorcycle goes from being lucky to make around 175 horsepower to the rear tire to over 200 horsepower to the rear tire. Starting to sound familiar? Guys, this new GSXR 1000 is going to be dirty. I promise you, once tuners get their hands on it and start taking advantage of what Suzuki's given us, this bike is going to be an animal. And it has the makings for being a bike that could potentially be much more, well, rider friendly in a way. The Suzuki has one very strong calling card versus all the rest of the leader class bikes that are out there. And that calling card is tip in torque. Suzuki's are just known for being very torquey. A lot of that has to do with camshaft design, but it also has to do with the tuning and a few other things, but it doesn't really matter. This bike is going to have all the things that it needs to make a major top end rush without sacrificing a lot of the power down low. There's a lot of things you can do with cam timing to capture that mid-range back. And if, for example, the variable intake cam timing is slowed just a little bit, that will allow this engine to create better mid-range as it did before, and then still give you that massive top end hit that this bike promises to give you. So no need in worrying about losing any kind of torque through the middle. I have a feeling this bike may actually be a little bit rowdier, especially once tuners get their hands on it. So let me check in with you guys real quick. Sam was first in. Sacrificial Lamb is in. $1 billion, man. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for the support, my friend. I do appreciate that. Thank you. Saying thank you for the detailed analysis and great Gixxer content. Thank you, my brother. Y'all appreciate that. Zoot Nation, baby. So here's where I'm at with this. And again, I do appreciate that, guy. Thank you so very much. If there is a concern for anybody when you see the power numbers, because this is what I want to get into, the new motorcycle, even with all of those performance enhancements, is shown to be about 7 horsepower down and about 5 foot-pounds of torque down. The thing is, that is with the factory tune and the factory exhaust. And you got to remember, this motorcycle is being developed and put together and sent out into the world to be simply Euro 5 plus whatever letters go along with that compliant. And the thing is the funny thing about Suzuki is this is the number that they're claiming, boys. Claiming. Do y'all know what Suzukis do? Let me just explain to you a little bit about Zooks and what happens when you put a Suzuki into the fishbowl, right? You can say that a Suzuki makes whatever on paper. You can say that it performs in some kind of way on a dyno. It doesn't matter. It never does with Suzuki. For whatever reason, Suzukis are a cheat code. If they're saying this bike makes less power, it's probably faster than the outgoing bike, stock for stock. And the reason why I say that is this. It never fails. Anytime you put a Suzuki up against any other motorcycle, regardless of what it is rated at, the Suzuki will somehow or another figure out a way to drive around it. And it just is a Suzuki trait. They make a ton of average power. And in saying all of that, that is what it looks like this motorcycle is going to give. A much flatter, much more controllable power curve from the factory, maybe, probably because it's running crazy lean. But what you're going to get, again, once this bike is cracked, is a host of different hot rod parts that guys are going to go nuts with. So let me check back in with you guys again, Billy, and I appreciate that so much. Sacrificial saying, so did they kill the mid-range? No, I wouldn't say that they did. I wouldn't say that they did at all. Sharp Sin say, big day, B. Yes, it is. I like it. Got the bald guy with the flex and the specs. I like it. Sharp saying, all of the I need TFT screen noodle arm boys, soy boys are crying in the blues. Okay, so here's the thing. I was never really a TFT guy. I mean, I can take it or leave it. I can see where it has a benefit. Let me tell you what the benefits are to a TFT. They're very clear to read, and they're great if you want an extremely obnoxious shift light. That's where they're really good. But outside of that, I mean, I get it. I don't really know what the difference is in cost between one and the next. I don't know what the difference is in durability. Is it that the LCD screen can just not have the same problems that a TFT could? Perhaps. Look, Suzuki is known for making battle wagons. And the one takeaway you'll always have with a Suzuki is that it's going to start and it's going to haul ass. So when you look at it from that point of view, I don't really care. And I've got videos about this with my 2025 GSXR 750. And I'm just saying, look, I don't see a problem with the LCD screen. It's got all the information that I need in one spot. I can look down and see it. I don't really have an issue with it. So, yeah, for the guys that are upset about the Suzuki not having a TFT, there's aftermarket solutions for that. So if it means something to you, shell out the extra coin and get one. Show saying Ducati familiar. And say it's the reincarnate of the Gen 1 Busa. Oh, Tim's in. What's up, Tim? $1 billion asking, what color are you guys buying? Did you see the thumbnail? Chef saying Suzuki rules. H2s mean nothing. I'll tell you what, I am a big fan of the Zook. And again, Billion, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You should sell stickers with that. Zook Nation, that's been out for a while. Chef saying my Busa is live, stage 3. I love it. Billion saying my 750 rips and it's stock. I believe you that this new 1K is going to be the tuner's dream, man. Okay, so again, for you guys that are just getting into the chat, I want to go through the specs so that what I'm saying doesn't, because I'm just going to sit here and yammer on, but I do want to be a little bit technical with this so that you guys can understand that everything that Suzuki did with this bike, it's good. It's really good. And don't worry about what has been claimed as far as lower horsepower. Here's the other thing. That is a European spec bike, guys. That is the number that they're going to claim is the European spec horsepower and torque numbers. Since the horsepower and torque is never claimed on the US spec bikes. Things can be different as they cross the pond, my friends. So getting back into the specs for you guys that are just now getting in the chat, the new bike's got beefier crankshaft journals, again, to add some durability, higher compression ratio. That's a very good thing, going from 13.2 to 13.8. That's a big jump. It's got beefier connecting rods with a revised crankcase. The revised crankcase is going to be able to house the bigger journals in that crankshaft, and it could have better it could have better breathing for pumping. And this is one big issue when we're talking about the actual pumping losses that take place inside of an engine. That does eat up horsepower. So a revised crankcase, well, that could very easily allow for better breathing and better flow as those engines are moving around inside that crankcase. You're going to have, and inside the block, there's all kinds of air and space that is getting moved around. Revising that gives you better pumping, which means that it takes away some parasitic losses. Exhaust valve has gone up. It's now a 25 millimeter versus the 24 millimeter that was in the older cylinder head. So it's got bigger exhaust valves. Very good thing. It's got significantly larger throttle bodies. Guys, they went up 2 millimeters on the throttle bodies on this bike. They're now 48 millimeter versus 46 millimeters. Revised camshaft timing to allow for, assumingly, well, it'll end up being better top end horsepower, but it is a wider lobe separation angle. The only thing that bugs me about that is you might lose a little bit of the GSXR lope on cold start. That'll be a bummer. It's got higher pressure fuel pump, and it's got 8-hole injectors instead of 10-hole injectors now. And as far as the exhaust goes and the things that are going to help it be Euro 5 compliant, you've got a larger catalytic converter, a revised catalytic converter at that, and a smaller capacity muffler, although the thing looks like it's about as long as your shin. And again, and it's also going to come with a lithium battery, and that's going to help shed a little bit of weight. That new exhaust system is obviously pretty heavy. The bike comes in about 1 kilogram heavier than the outgoing bike, which is to say that it's about 2.5 pounds heavier, even with that lithium battery, mainly, again, because of that exhaust system. So those are the details on that bike. That's everything that we know up to this point. McMahon saying, take the colors of the 26 and put it on the 25. Yeah. Chef saying, nobody wants to race me. Love me some Hayabusa. I've raced a couple of Hayabusas on the highway. They run good. I love the Hayabusa. That's one of the most surprising bikes to me, is just how fun that bike is to ride. Sharp saying the red and white colorway is calling me. Me too. Mix asking, is it easy to get different fairings from Suzuki to change the look of their bikes? Very easy. All you got to do is order them up. It's not cheap, but you definitely can do it. Chef's got a 2019 Busa. Very nice. I rode a 2022 and absolutely love that bike. Sam saying, honestly, new bikes scare me. Yeah, they're pretty intense. Big saying he was riding last night. The big girl keeping you warm. I like it. So let's talk technology. We haven't even gotten into technology yet outside of the TFT screen. So here's where things get a little bit spicy with this new bike, guys. With the new motorcycle comes a new host of, well, let's just call them rider aids and be polite about it. But there are a lot of nannies, but they're not just nannies anymore. These are true programmable rider aids. What does all that mean? Well, you're still going to get 3 rider modes, A, B, and C, A being your most aggressive. You're still going to get multiple traction control modes, presumably out to 10 is what it looks like. But you're also going to get another series of adjustable modes. You've got wheelie control, which is going to be a part of this. You've got what can only be described as endo control, that you can dial back as well. All of the systems in the bike can be dialed back very far. I mean, to the point where they're hardly even noticeable by the rider, even when you're doing some pretty hairy stuff, or you can turn it off completely. So there's a lot going on with the technology suite that we simply did not have before. And that is pretty major. So definitely cool with that. Billion say, don't forget that 2 millimeter diameter increase in the intake is actually quite a bit. No, it is absolutely huge. Surface area at 46, 66.47 millimeters, 48, 72.38. It's an 11% increase, which is exactly right. There is a lot going on just with a 2% increase in actual airflow for this bike. And again, that is going to help this motorcycle make power way out the big end, but it's not really going to hurt it in terms of making mid-range power. It's just going to help this bike breathe a lot easier. And with a revised airbox, again, you're getting better breathing, better camshaft timing, higher compression. Guys, this thing is going to be a monster. And again, no, it's still a big difference. And Blade, you don't have to take the radius into account. You can take just diameter. It will end up mathing out to about the same. So don't sweat it. Either way, it's a big difference. And the thing is that there's guys that would, the cheat is to try to port the stock throttle bodies. So yeah, trust me, there's a lot going on here that because we just don't have our hands on the bike yet, we don't have, I can't wait to get my hands on one. Matter of fact, I can tell you about what the one is that I'm going to be getting my hands on here. And it goes a little something like this. Let me go ahead and get it pulled up. Oh, and for the North American market, let me do this. Let me scoot back over here. The North American market is getting the traditional blue, white, and black. And it is also getting the red, white, and gold. Yeah, I am loving that red, white, and gold. That looks clean with those white rims, boys. Damn it. Yeah, that is sick to death right there. So imagine this bike, full M4, tail tidy, mirror block offs, Suzuki branded MRA screen. Yeah. Gotta say, guys, that's going to be the one right there. So again, I'm really looking forward to this bike because of all of these changes that Suzuki is making. And making in all the changes that Suzuki is making to this motorcycle, it's going to be a tuner's dream in the same way that the Honda CBR 1000 RRR is. You've got all the makings to build big power, bigger throttle bodies. You've got much higher fuel pump capacity. You've got better connecting rods, bigger exhaust valves. Tell me something. What is it about the exhaust valve that would help you with emissions? That bigger exhaust valve helps with emissions. Gee, how does that work? That's kind of funny. The reason why you go bigger exhaust valve, if you're spreading the intake center line out, you're trying to evacuate that cylinder as best as you can, as fast as you can. And by doing so, you're reducing pumping losses. Now, one of the things about going with the wider lobe separation on the cam, so we are going to talk about camshaft, is if you have a wide lobe separation angle, that what it means is that your intake tract becomes what we call more active. And so in doing so, you're going to want to have larger throttle bodies, larger intake runners to allow for the greater demand coming through that port. Chef's asking, it's a oh, wait a minute, hang on. Anyway, there are reasons. So what you do is you get a motorcycle that makes better power everywhere when you make these kind of changes. That's why when I'm looking at these changes, being the guy that was putting camshafts together, doing camshaft design, yeah, I'm looking at this and I'm going, this thing is going to want to spin its ass off. Think very much S1000R from BMW. Sam's liking twins. Oh, Chef saying, to be honest, the ZX14 has my attention. ZX14 is a killer bike. Mike's liking that white and red, same. Yeah, that white and red is sick, isn't it? Chef's talking about that ZX14 being a tank. Hey, it's a little bit lighter than the Busa. Both of them are great bikes. The difference between the two to ride them, the Busa has more mid-range power. The 14 has way on the right-hand side of the tack will make more horsepower. So yeah, I am real excited about where Suzuki is going with this motorcycle. They're giving tuners all of the tools that they need to make a ton of power. This is a motorcycle that once it's de-restricted will be able to go toe to toe with any other motorcycle that will be putting down over 200 horsepower to the rear tires. This bike with a reflash and an exhaust, I am betting will be somewhere around 202, 204 horsepower to the rear tire. And it'll do so without any muss or any fuss. I am loving that it does have the new revised rider aids. They are all completely turn offable if you want. Matter of fact, let me show you guys something. This was something that I thought was pretty funny. Let me see if I can find it for you real quick. And it was in the, let's see if I can find it. Bear with me, guys, just 1 second. It's a picture of the screen. Anyway, I can't find it right now. And the reason why it's so funny is on the screen, it's the actual, the LCD display. It's got power mode A, traction off. I thought that was awesome. And that's the guys that were, they're taking all the pictures and doing the riding with the bikes. It's pretty funny. I like it. So we're going to get into, Chef's talking about getting into the settings. So basically the way I understand it is it works like this. All of the different traction control settings are very reminiscent of what you're already used to. If you've got a GSXR 1000 and you ride it in A1, the way that I do, that mode is, in essence, max power, most aggressive throttle mapping for the secondary throttle plates. And one is as far as traction control and nanny intervention. What it means is that it takes a lot to get those rider aids attention in mode 1, okay? Where the new GSXR 1000 is going to supersede that bike is you're going to have your, what is in essence, endo control, which is front dive control, which I'm not a huge fan of. That'll be turned off if I can just single that one out. It's also going to have, my understanding also is a more programmable wheelie control and overall traction control. So with this bike, I guess the overarching idea is set it up the same way you set up your old GSXR 1000. Set up your power mode to A, set up everything else to its lowest setting, but don't turn it off. Get out there and go do stuff with it. It's not going to really step in and do much the way that the old bike wouldn't either. The only issue that some guys had said about the old system is that it would overreact if it thought that something was happening. Where the new bike separates itself is that it is predictive, not reactive. So what exactly does that mean? So this is the part of the chat that gets real technical. So when you have rider aids like traction control, wheelie control, things of that nature, the older style was such that when it saw a discrepancy, front tire, back tire, lean angle, if it did even pick up on it, what it would look at is the percentage of difference from a base standard. And the worse things got, the more intervention that you got. So let's say that you are nailing the throttle and for whatever reason, the rear tire starts to spin. It will allow a certain amount of spin, but after a certain amount, it'll start to chop throttle, and it does so pretty aggressively. Where the new bike differs is very much the same system that Aprilia uses. In fact, I would be surprised if it wasn't programmed by the same guy. And what that means is that it is proactive, and it knows that at a certain throttle input, you will get a certain amount of rise out of the front tire. If this throttle input in a certain gear goes past a certain rotation per second, it is going to only allow for a certain amount of throttle to be applied max. So you get a proactive, not a reactive system. And it allows for a faster intervention time. This is a situation where inches can make a difference. And that's why it is so much more advanced now than what it was before. Let me give you another example of how this works. You are in a corner, you're in a long sweeper, and you start to crack that throttle hard. But let's say that you're cracking it a little too hard in second gear. Well, what happens is the motorcycle knows what lean angle that it's at. It knows what throttle position it has, and it knows its speed. When you go to crack that throttle, it already knows what it will allow, what the tires will allow, and what the conditions will allow. You crack that throttle too hard, it doesn't intervene. It just doesn't open the throttle blades as much. On the secondaries, it allows the bike to never get upset as opposed to reacting when the bike does become upset. And again, that's why this system is so good. And I think it got glossed over a little bit in all of this release. I think that there wasn't enough emphasis on the fact that you've got a proactive system as opposed to a reactive, a system that is extremely common to Aprilia, Ducati, BMW uses the same types of systems. Now, when you drop those systems down to their lowest settings, they don't really do anything. There's a little bit of intervention there. But the reality is, at least on even at that level, you've got your little digital fairy godmother that's going to float around. Your guardian angel, if you will, is still out there just watching you make a fool out of yourself. But at least there's a little bit of something in terms of intervention that can help. A lot of this with the lean sensitive also comes into play with braking and things like that. It's not just engine management. It also has to do with the ABS controller. So because of that, there's so much more going on with this bike that I'm so excited about. And I'm really looking forward to throwing my leg over what will end up being my new bike as soon as it shows up. And I cannot I'm so excited that I can't even see straight. Now, again, I don't want you to think that all these nannies are going to hurt the performance of this bike. I don't think that's going to be the case. I'll give you an example. With the way that I ride my 2025 GSXR 1000, I hammer on that thing pretty hard. I am very comfortable with it. I've got that bike set up nicely. I know exactly what to expect. The R model is actually from the factory, more or less how I have my A model already set up. That's why I'm moving more towards the R model. But the idea here is that the overall riding dynamic of the GSXR 1000 in A1 mode is extremely good. And it allows you to get away with a lot. And you guys have seen videos when I'm going out and I'm going, it's time to go practice. Let's go have some fun. And I've got this bike on the side of the tire. I'm rolling into the throttle and it's a little bit dusty. And you'll see the bike, I'm hoping that it's rare that it really ever comes over on camera, some of the stuff that I'm doing, which might be a good thing in a way. And I'll get the bike to step out and it just comes right back in line and there's really no intervention going on there. You still will have that ability. And you can always turn it off if you want to. But again, I feel like that's one of the things that did get overlooked in the release is the fact that we are going to be working with a much better technology, a predictive rider aid overall package, that suite, if you will, of technology. It really is that much better with this new bike. So very cool for the techno guys out there. And for the guys that don't care, look, you can always turn it off if you want to. So let's dive back into you guys real quick. Ryan is in. What is up? Mode 1, beast mode. Indeed it is. Just say, don't do stuff, you young punks. These nannies will step in. Let me just put it to you like this. Having ridden the Aprilia Tuono V4, I know what this bike is going to act like with predictive rider aids. And I can tell you that it's a little weird when they kick in, but when they do kick in, it's a very soft intervention. It's not what you might expect, where you have this hard reactive nanny that kicks in and just slapping your wrist and no, don't do that. It doesn't allow you to do the dumb thing as you are requesting to do the dumb thing. It's kind of like, if the nanny says, I want that pen, and the nanny just takes the pen away, you don't even get a chance to touch it. That's what that proactive system does, as opposed to being reactive. Saying A mode is beast mode. I learned the hard way. Mick saying I rode in C mode and it felt like a damn scooter. Yeah, I won't put mine in C mode. No way. Bike wanting more. Quick shifter refused at 6,000 RPM. I'm hoping they got the quick shifter sorted out on this new bike. I'm pretty sure they just fixed the sensor. Oh, Mick saying he hadn't used a quick shifter, still rocking old school. Nice. Jeff saying I want to find a Ducati V4. Good bike. Titan saying it's legit. Sam's checking out. Later, buddy. Good seeing you. So the main takeaways, guys, look, the bike's going to be amazing. Don't worry about the horsepower being down. That's not a big deal. Guys, look, Suzuki, whenever they claim numbers, okay. And even though look, every time I've seen a Suzuki on a dyno, if it makes less horsepower than the bike sitting right next to it, if you take them out and line them up, why is it that the Suzuki always seems to win the race? Explain that to me. Must be a Zook Nation thing. But there's a lot going on in this bike. Again, beefier crankshaft, higher compression ratio, new connecting rods, revised crankcase. You've got bigger exhaust valves, bigger throttle bodies, revised camshaft timing, higher pressure fuel pump, 8-hole injectors. All of that is a good thing, guys. These are all performance modifications that you would make to your bike if you were going to take it out and go racing. It's almost like it's almost like Suzuki called up race teams and said, hey, if you're going to go racing, if you're going to build an endurance bike, or if you're going to build a sprint bike, what would you do to that thing? What would be the things you would want different about the engine? Oh, you want bigger throttle bodies. Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah. Oh, the crankshaft thing. Okay. Yeah, let's do that too. It really is. It's almost like a checklist that they went off. Okay, we need to make this better for racing. Just so happens these efficiencies, along with a much larger catalytic converter, is going to make this bike more emissions compliant. Oh, and hold on. Let me see if I can find something real quick. This bike is, I've zoomed in. Here's what I want you to look at. See those right here, right behind the brake lever, right behind the brake lever. You seeing what I'm seeing? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Those are cables, baby. Looks like this bike is still cable throttle, which is extremely cool. That means you don't have cruise control, but it is still a throttle by cable system. So again, definitely cool stuff. A lot going on with this bike behind the scenes. And I can tell you that once tuners get their hands on this bike, it's going to be lights out. I can't wait to see how it evolves and how it progresses. But with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Want to do a quick show tonight, go over some of the technical details of the new GSXR 1000. There's a lot of stuff going on with this bike that a lot of tuners, a lot of racers are going to be very excited about. Don't let the lower horsepower number fool you. That's just so that it can pass the Euro 5 compliance. Trust me, there's a lot lurking in this bike, and I can't wait to see this motorcycle flex its potential. But with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Listen, get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know. Billy Dollar Dan, I do appreciate the contribution to the cause, the support. I really do appreciate that. And listen, guys, love each and every one of y'all. Would not do this without you. Zook Nation, baby. We got a new baby. I'm excited. I hope you guys are too. Catch you on the next one. Take care, guys.